Building muscle isn't easy, and if you want to maximize it, you need to make sure that you're eating the right things and that your diet is on point. Otherwise, what's the point in going to the gym if you're not actually going to be fueling yourself to regrow tissue and grow more tissue? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the macronutrients and the micronutrients and break down why we need to structure them in a certain way in order to achieve our goals. For starters, I want to go over my credentials to talk on this topic. First off, I have a degree in exercise science, as well as multiple years, over 5+ of in-person and online training and coaching through people through their fitness journeys, as well as nutrition help with that. On top of that, I'm ACE certified, and through that ACE certification, when I got recertified this past year, I went into specifically nutrition when I was trying to get my recertification, so I have some update knowledge when it comes to that, as well as I'm a person who lifts from time to time, so I have to eat right in order to get the results that I'm looking for. The number one macronutrient that we're going to be talking about is protein. It is going to be made up of amino acids, and it is important in the repair and growth process of muscle. So we're going to want to make sure that that's the main thing that we're focusing on. On average, 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound of body weight is what we're aiming for. Depending on your cutting or bulking is going to kind of differ how much you want to get. Watch my other video on cutting versus bulking if you would like more information on that. But anywhere between 0.8 and 1.2 is a general recommendation that you want. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you want around 200 grams of protein per day. Along with protein, another thing that you need to know with it is that you want to get mainly complete sources if you can. So that is going to be meat sources or egg sources. That can be, fish, salmon, beef, turkey, whatever you want it to be. Those are going to be mainly complete sources. However, if you're a vegetarian, you can go for, tofu or, vegan proteins. Protein powders are perfectly fine. Those are going to be complete sources for the most part. There are some that are kind of exceptions where, like Built Puff is supposedly going to be a little bit more of a collagen protein. It's not a complete protein, but if you're getting mainly most of your sources of protein as complete, they don't all need to be. So try and aim for complete sources if you can. And again, 0.8 to 1.2 grams per pound per day of mainly complete sources. Now, as far as protein spacing or the anabolic window, you don't need to eat protein directly after you work out. There's no, 30-minute window in which you have to get protein in. Protein spacing throughout the day is going to be perfectly fine. So the more you space it out throughout the day, the better. So instead of 3 times per day eating protein, it would be optimal to maybe go for 4 or 5. However, if a person is busy and they can't really manage that, it's perfectly fine to just go for 3 times a day. You don't need, snacks in between or whatever else, or whole other meals. But ideally, if you can space it, it's going to keep muscle protein synthesis high. It's going to help that repair and rebuilding and that growth process of muscle. So if you can space it, that's fine. But if not, don't worry about this anabolic window, spacing it out all the time. Even if you were to eat 1 meal a day and it just has all of your protein in it for 1 day, you can still get results from that. There have been studies that have found that. So don't worry about it too much. But if you're wanting to be optimal, try and space it out as much as you can throughout the day. And then as far as amount per meal when you're spacing, I would generally recommend at least 20. So 20 to 30 grams is like your minimum area, especially if you're on the bigger side in terms of muscle or just size in general. Definitely 30 grams is probably the minimum that you want to aim for per meal to help elevate that muscle protein synthesis and keep it high throughout the day. However, if you're on the smaller side and you don't have as many calories to work with, then maybe 20 grams per meal is perfectly fine. But again, just making sure, even if you're on the smaller side, let's say you're 150 pounds, or 130, whatever, 110, making sure that you're getting around that 1 gram per pound, regardless of how much you're eating per meal. So, if it's roughly like 110 pounds, let's say, as a person, you want to be getting, 20 per meal. That's at least 5 meals a day where you're getting 20 grams per day. Or you could have less meals per day, but just getting more protein per serving. And also another thing with that, people like to talk about the fact that, if you're eating protein and you're only getting it in 1 meal, your body can't digest that protein in 1 sitting. Sure, it's not just going to sit in your stomach and then just like boom, all your protein's gone just like that. It's getting ready to be used. It takes time to digest when you're eating that much protein in 1 sitting, but your body is very efficient and it's not just going to waste that protein. So don't worry about, if you eat 100 grams in 1 sitting and you're just like, okay, well, I just wasted, like 70 because it only can process 30 grams. That's simply not true. It's been disproven. So don't worry about if you're only eating, 1 or 2 meals a day, you're still going to get that protein in. Again, ideally we space it, but we don't have to. On to the second macronutrient here, we're going to be talking about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are important because that's going to be our main fuel source for our workouts. So even when you're on a cut or a bulk, you want to kind of space your carbohydrates throughout your day around your windows in which you're going to be working out. So if you work out in the morning, you might want to have a high carb meal before that, or have the high carb meal the night before if you do fasted workouts. So that way you're going to have your biggest meal be the one before your workout in terms of carbs. That way you're getting that digestion process going in terms of that. So your muscle's going to have that glycogen stored and ready to use. Now, for carbs, it's kind of interesting because you want to aim for mostly complex carbs, so your potatoes, your rice, your stuff like that. However, simple carbs can be beneficial, especially pre-workout. If you have a small window in which you're, going to the gym, let's say you wake up and instantly go to the gym, you got about like 20 minutes for it to digest. You might want to have your carbohydrates be a simple form, so maybe simple sugars. This can be like a cereal bar. I know people love Rice Krispies, so maybe that's going to be an option for you. Rice cakes, whatever else, right, that fits into your macros. But having that before your workout, even though it's mainly a simple carbohydrate, can be beneficial, as that's going to get into your digestive system and process faster and then into your bloodstream, so you can actually use that fuel more efficiently and more quickly. However, again, for the most part, complex carbs are what we're aiming for. They're going to have, generally speaking, more micronutrients that we're aiming for, as well as more fiber to keep us full and satiated longer, as well as just higher volume compared to, things like candy. A potato, the amount of raw weight that you can have of a potato compared to something like, a candy bar or something, the difference is going to be pretty massive for the amount of calories per volume of food that you can eat. And so especially when you're trying to lose weight, you want to keep your volumes high for the foods that you're eating. And so even on a bulk, you would still want to. Regardless, you want to have more food and then more healthy or micronutrient dense food to actually fuel you through your workouts. So if you can aim for the more complex carbohydrates, I would ideally say so. Now, a kind of misconception that a lot of people get when it comes to carbohydrates is that, yes, you're going to find some in fruits and vegetables, and a lot of people talk about how, fruits have sugars, so they're bad. That's just simply untrue. They might have more sugar, an apple might have more sugar than, like a fun-sized candy bar or something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's worse for you just because it has more sugar. Not only is it going to have more micronutrients than that candy bar does, it's also going to have fiber in it, which is more beneficial for you, less calories, higher volume. I could go on and on about the benefits. So, eating more natural foods is going to be beneficial compared to processed. I'm not against processed. I eat processed foods. But if you can have most of your diet, or maybe 80-20, be mainly natural foods, and then the other 20% be processed foods, that's ideally what you're going for. So don't try and shy away from vegetables or fruits, when people say that they might have, downsides to them. I know that people say that, sometimes certain vegetables can also take away micronutrients when eaten and digested. That is true, but the net benefit that they do give you of the micronutrients that they store is going to be beneficial, and micronutrients are very important. So trying to get a variety of fruits and vegetables is going to be beneficial. A way of telling if you're getting a good variety is by color. So you want to eat the rainbow when it comes to vegetables and fruits. Maybe you have an apple a certain week, and then blueberries, oranges the next week. You have spinach one week, and then you have, yellow onion, and then we go for some like red peppers. That would be a way that you could kind of do different things throughout the week, and that way you're spacing out these micronutrients and that you're not going to be deficient in any, as that's going to diminish your performance and also just your well-being and how you feel overall. Okay, so now on to probably the most misunderstood macronutrient, which is going to be fats. It's hard to emphasize how important they are when it comes to your hormone balance. So if you can, you want to aim for 20 to 35% of your daily total energy that you're consuming, your calories, is going to be fats. So depending on how many calories you get to eat per day, or you are allotted for your bulk or cut, just take that divided by, that percentage. That's the amount that you want from fats. Now, fats aren't all created equal, okay? So there's a huge debate going on right now about seed oils versus like dairy fats and other stuff like that. I don't want to get into it too much because I've talked about it before, and I can make a dedicated video on it if you want me to. However, seed oils are heavily demonized for reasons that I can't understand, as the literature just simply doesn't point to the fact that they're worse than butters or whatever else. Everything in moderation is going to be important, especially when it comes to fats. If you're looking at calories per gram, protein and carbs are going to be 4 calories per gram. Fats are going to be 9. So if you're eating any form of high-fat food, is going to be very calorically dense. And so you don't need that much fats in your meals in order to allot a lot of calories, but also the amount of benefit that they give. So adding a little bit of fats to your meals is going to be okay, whether you want it to be butters, olive oils, coconut oils, avocado oils or just avocados themselves, nuts, whatever you want them to be, or even from meat sources, like a fattier steak. It does not matter. Everything in moderation. Okay, so I don't quite understand. I understand that there's misinformation, but I want you to understand that something like salmon that has fat in it is not going to be the same as a highly processed, high fat food. Okay, so not all fats are created equal. I've made a blog post covering this very in depth, and so I can link it if you would like in the description down below. If you would like to read more about fats specifically, I do a macronutrient breakdown on all of them, so if you want to read all the posts, you can. However, just for the importance of this video, understand that everything in moderation is going to be okay, to a degree, right? But you don't need to cut out all seed oils or cut out all fats in general. Fats are important for hormone function. If we want to grow, we need testosterone in our body. Males and females both have testosterone, varying levels between us. However, understanding sleep and stress, nutrition, hydration are going to increase our natural levels of testosterone. That way we are going to grow better and recover better when it comes to our workouts. So fats aren't the enemy, okay? 20 to 35% of our daily energy expenditure and our caloric intake should be from fats. Okay, lastly, I know that I said I was talking mainly about macronutrients here. However, I have covered micronutrients a little bit, and so I want to cover them a little bit more here. The best way of getting those in your whole foods diet, which you are going to generally want to eat, is going to be through sources of fruits and vegetables. So again, you want to eat the colors of the rainbow when it comes to a week by week basis in terms of the fruits and vegetable choices that you're having. That's going to be the most beneficial in terms of getting your micronutrient intake. You are going to find micronutrients in other foods, especially like your whole wheat breads or, certain meat sources, protein sources, eggs even, right? So you can have those options in terms of micronutrients as well. You don't necessarily need to track every single micronutrient. I know that can kind of stress people out when they're thinking about it and how much they would have to track then. You don't necessarily need to do that. As long as you are eating the colors of the rainbow and you're having a varied whole foods diet, you should be okay. Now, if you do want to take a supplement like a multivitamin, that's perfectly fine. Maybe talk to your doctor to see if that's beneficial for you, as multivitamins have been found to not be the most beneficial comparative to whole food sources of micronutrients, but they are better than nothing, I will say. And so if that's the route that you want to go, I would contact your doctor or do your research when it comes to that. But yes, micronutrients are important. They're not as important as the macronutrients in terms of tracking everything. If you are eating a varied whole foods diet, for the most part, again, 80-20 if we can, that's going to be beneficial and you probably shouldn't have to worry about it too much. Okay, to conclude and wrap up everything that I've said, 1 gram per pound of protein per day is what we're going for based on your body weight. If you are extremely overweight, you can go for goal weight. So let's say you're 400 pounds, you're trying to get to 250, go for 250, as 400 grams of protein is a lot to eat in a day, especially when you're trying to lose weight. So if you're very overweight, just go for your goal weight. Carbohydrates, for the protein, we want to get mainly whole food sources if we can, and the ones that are going to have all of the essential amino acids that we have in our bodies that we need. So that's going to look like meat sources, egg sources. You can have some grain or like bean sources, quinoa, stuff like that, tofu. Those are going to be beneficial as in terms of, a vegan or vegetarian diet. You can go for those options. Vegan, protein powders, stuff like that. If you're a non-meat eater, stuff like that, whatever. But as long as you're getting 1 gram per pound of body weight roughly per day, whether you're in a bulk or a cut, is going to be the most beneficial. Carbohydrates, wanting to get the complex form of carbohydrates as much as we can. So your rice, your potatoes, things like that are going to be the most beneficial. You don't need to eat just chicken and rice every single day. You can switch up the options there. I have plenty of videos in terms of foods that I've made, and I can put some on screen throughout the video as well. But just to give you some suggestions as to things that you could eat. However, those are going to be the most beneficial in terms of carbs. On top of that, with carbs, your main big carb meal, you probably want to be the one prior to going to the gym, as that's when you most need the energy. Carbs are our form of energy for our workouts. Fats, again, not the enemy. 20 to 35% of our caloric intake for the day should be from fats. They're going to help our hormones, which is going to help us in turn have higher testosterone levels. In terms of energy, it's going to be higher, so then we can train in the gym, eat our protein, eat our carbs, get the energy, and then regrow. It's all a process. And again, with micronutrients, eat the colors of the rainbow if you can when it comes to your vegetables and fruits. Please don't demonize any specific group of foods if there isn't actual scientific backing behind it. people want to fight back and forth between which foods are good, which foods are bad. Don't look into it too much. Just try and eat healthy, and watch this video back if you need to in terms of any more information that you would like. If you have any comments that you want to leave, ask them. Don't be afraid. I love talking to people in the comments in terms of the questions that they have. And if you have a comment that I would like to make into a video, I can make a longer form video for that as well. But yeah, peace, like, comment, subscribe, all that.